Hello and welcome to today's panel discussion on what's next in law. Apologies for the delay getting started. We had a few technical issues, but we're able to begin now. I'm Anthony Forsyth, Law Discipline Leader here at RMIT University. If we could go to the next slide, please. Before we kick off the session, I'd like to acknowledge the people of the Woiwurrung and Bunurong language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of the university. RMIT respectfully acknowledges their ancestors and elders, past, present and emerging. And while we conduct our work remotely, I want to pay my respect to the wider unceded lands of this nation. Welcome to the people in the audience who are interested in our new Bachelor of Laws degree, and also some of our first year students who are already in that program. Thanks for joining in. If we could just go back to the first slide. I'll introduce our panel members. So with me today, Kim Shaw, who's Executive Director and National Head of Personal Legal Services at Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, and John Tuck, who's Partner and National Practice Group Leader, Workplace Relations and Safety at Cause Chambers Westgarth. And one of our technical issues was bringing in the third panellist, David Mejia Canales, a former RMIT law student and Chief of Staff to the Senator for the Australian Greens, Lydia Thorpe, and we're still trying to connect David. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. Just before we start, let you know that we'll have 15 to 20 minutes at the end of our panel discussion to go over the questions from the audience. You can submit questions in the Q&A tool on the right at any time, and we'll do our best to answer as many of those as possible. If we run out of time, there is a live chat currently open for Open Day, and that can be joined at any time. In this session, we're going to cover the various career options with a law degree and what employers are looking for in law graduates. But I want to start by spending a bit of time with two of our panel members, Kim and John, looking at how technology is changing legal practice and how that's impacting on the skills that law graduates need when looking for positions with commercial and other legal firms and other career options that are available. So I might start with you, Kim. Could you just give us a bit of an outline of your firm, the type of work you do and the sort of clients that you represent?
Yes, great. Thank you, Anthony, and good evening, everybody. So my firm, Maurice Blackburn, is Australia's leading social justice firm, and we believe everyone has the right to be free, safe, heard and equal. We've got a very long and proud history of working with unions, community groups and other community advocates in civil society. Our main practice areas include personal injury law, employment law for individuals, industrial law on behalf of our unions, class actions, wills and estates law and litigation funding. And in particular, we're particularly famous for our social justice cases, and for example, for asylum seekers, we've just commenced a pro bono class action against the Commonwealth of Australia seeking compensation for people seeking asylum. It alleges, the class action alleges that the asylum seekers were unlawfully detained in Australian immigration detention centres between August 2011 and February 2020. We're also well known for our many other class actions like the Black Saturday bushfires class actions in Victoria and the floods class action in Brisbane, which relatively recently resolved. And indeed, we've recovered in excess of over $3 billion for wronged clients since the inception of our class actions practice in 1998. We're very proud of our recent work in bringing actions on behalf of women who have been sexually harassed by powerful figures in our society and sadly within the legal profession itself. My own practice group that I'm the division head of personal legal services, we look after superannuation and we help our clients make claims under the insurance policies that exist in their superannuation memberships. These insurances are often unknown and quite hidden to our superannuation members. These are ordinary, everyday Australians who find these processes complex and difficult, so we provide them with support in accessing those benefits, and they're transformative. Those payments, they might be anything from $20,000 up to $400,000 or $500,000, but they absolutely help somebody who is in need when they become unable to work due to unexpected illness or injury. In wills, some of you might have contemplated succession law as one of your subjects. So that's all about estate planning, drafting your will, and powers of attorney. That's about estate administration, so also known as probate, where the wishes of the will maker are seen to, and if there is a dispute in relation to what family members have been left in the will, then that might end up in some litigation. So that gives you a bit of a quick sketch of what Maurice Blackburn does and what my particular practice group is involved with. Thank you, Anthony.
No worries. Thanks, Kim. And it's such an interesting and diverse range of work that Maurice Blackburn does. It's evolved a lot from the short time I spent with the firm 25 years ago, where we met Kim. And so now I'll ask the same of John Tuck in relation to another firm where I've worked more recently, Cause Chambers Westgarth. Tell us about your practice, John.
Thanks, Anthony. I'm just trying to unmute. Thanks, Anthony. Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for the opportunity, Anthony, to be here tonight. As Anthony said, I am the head of employment and labour at Cause. Cause is Australia's leading independent law firm, and when I say that, we're in the commercial sense. We're a commercial firm. We do major transactions for corporations, mergers and acquisition space. We do major dispute litigation in the commercial sense, including class actions. And in my area, we act for many of Australia's largest employers, as well as the public sector and governments across Australia, dealing with their most difficult employment, labour and safety issues. And more recently, in that context, I've spent an enormous amount of time over the last 2 weeks dealing with the issue of mandatory vaccinations in work. As well as vaccine passports, and the legal challenges that arise in relation to that. And Anthony and I have also previously spent an awful lot of time talking about the gig economy and the nature of the relationship between gig economy players and the people who work within those industries. Those are the sorts of contemporary issues that we have to deal with, and they are very demanding and they happen very quickly. And in a rapidly changing landscape as we're dealing with COVID at the moment, issues like mandatory vaccines and vaccine passports, they descend upon us very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's such a fertile area. It seems not a day goes by without a new view on whether employers can make vaccines mandatory or not. There's lots to happen there and lots of test cases.
We're just sending out our view to clients at the moment, Anthony. So yeah.
Good to hear, John. So if I can ask both of you, perhaps starting with you, Kim, what have you seen in terms of developments in relation to technology and how that's impacting both in terms of the way in which you're delivering legal services, but also in terms of perhaps changes in the issues that you're being asked to advise upon for clients?
Yes, so this is very topical, of course, Anthony, and I think probably the way I could best answer this is more around what the expectations of our service delivery is. So it's no surprise to anybody that the COVID has really transformed our society insofar as the way that Australians interact with businesses, and indeed it's been the biggest and quickest way of people learning those skills indeed. And as a result of that, we're finding it at our firm that our clients are expecting us to communicate with them using technology in that way, rather than having to come and meet with us face to face as they traditionally once did. So some of what I thought I would talk about and just give you some insights into is some of the technology that we've been using and started to use in our practice. And one of the things, and it's one of our very first forays into using artificial intelligence. So we have a new AI tool, as we call it, for checking if one of our super insurance clients that I was mentioning before, whether they have the insurance cover or not. So previously we had to go through quite a lengthy process of obtaining a signed authority from our clients. We'd have to get them to send it back to us. We'd have to then send that off to the super fund. The super fund would have to check whether the person had the relevant insurance cover at the relevant date, send that all back to us again. So all of that took weeks, and it was a bad experience for the client. It was awful, routine, repeatable administrative task for our staff, and it took up the time, frankly, of the super funds as well. So this tool means that we can literally, with all of the policies loaded into it, we can literally find the answer within minutes as opposed to weeks. And so we're just on the cusp of starting to really operationalise this tool, but we're sure that we will be able to use this kind of technology to take away those very routine, repeatable tasks from our staff, and whether that is our lawyers or our support staff, and it means that everybody can then be exercising their skills where it really matters. And in our firm, particularly, one of the things that's very important to us is making sure that we give our clients a good experience when they come to us to pursue their rights and entitlements. We've also introduced a online wills platform. So we've given it a name. It's called My Life Wills. This is the first, our relatively first foray into changing the way that a legal service is delivered to the consumers of our services. So we've given it a feel of a legal product rather than a legal service, and the online platform enables our clients to go in and enter in all of their instructions, and which at our end means that we can easily transfer those instructions into a will, and then it can go through the usual process of having a lawyer to review it, but it really makes the process much more efficient. So that's been a really important learning for us over the last couple of years about how to use technology to help us to deliver our services. We've learnt a huge amount from that exercise, and it's still plenty of work to do ongoing into the future, but it certainly does change the way that we deliver this particular legal service. And not every legal service, of course, will be conducive to being delivered in this manner, but certainly for some legal services, it's a really fantastic way for our clients to be able to access a legal service much more easily, and it also drives down the cost to serve, as it were, so it makes it more affordable for many, many more people than otherwise would have been the case. And we've also started to use a case management tool which is called Case Funnel, in some of our for our class actions practice, where people can log on to register very easily for a class action. They can upload their details and any supporting documentation that they might have, and they can easily access progress reports. So that means that that's replaced all of the very slow sort of way of having to send this information even by email or through the snail mail as it once was, and to exchange documentation information from our clients. So there's really great efficiencies through the ease of interaction and the automation of some of the process, and moving some of the effort to our clients rather than our clients paying us to do that effort, which they can easily do themselves. And its first use has been for assisting us with the administration of the settlement that has come as a result of the floods class action. So I think, Anthony, I'll pause there. Really, where we've been focusing in more recent times has been around how we can use technology in the way that we deliver our services to clients.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is so important in terms of accessibility and people being able to exercise their rights in the legal system. Really innovative stuff. And what about you at Cause, John? What are the sort of technological impacts? And I might add to that, what sort of digital skills are you expecting to see in the people coming through as graduates?
Thanks, Anthony. Plainly, there's been an enormous amount of change, and law firms across the globe have been really alive to the opportunities that technology presents to make things more efficient, take away a lot of the dull tasks and try and automate them. And that's happening with great pace across the legal industry. And that largely for us is utilising the skills of people in IT who can help us build intuitive systems to allow lawyers to use them, because we don't really place a huge amount of focus on the graduates coming through in their IT skills. We know that the generation coming through have great familiarity with technology, and it's very much a second nature to them. We don't expect you to have anything beyond what you probably already have naturally, having grown up with devices and technology and having a great understanding of what can be done with them. That's not our focus. Technology for us is something that we are trying to be fast followers of what's available out there in the market. We're trying to leverage off what very clever people are doing and make it accessible to our clients, and we do that in all sorts of ways, from managing millions of documents in some matters and getting IT to help us digest them and determine what's relevant. And there's some fabulous programs, and lawyers, we teach our lawyers how to do that. We don't expect them to know how to do that when they join us, but we do teach them, and most of these things are quite intuitive, Anthony. Technology is obviously hitting us in other ways because it creates all sorts of issues for our clients as well, that we do hope that our lawyers have a curiosity and interest in, whether it's understanding how data is stored, how privacy plays a role in that, what's the level of surveillance that's acceptable, what are the laws around that govern those things, how do you use social media appropriately if you're an employee, what boundaries can be placed on people's use. So those sorts of things that we all confront and hear about, lawyers have a role to play.
Yeah, really interesting. And I think, the three of us over the course of our legal careers, we've seen legal practice evolve enormously, and also from my time in firms, the expectations of clients with instantaneous communication, it certainly has elevated the level of commitment, I guess, of a lot of lawyers to servicing and keeping clients in a very competitive market. I might bring you in now, David. It's been great that we've been able to have you connected, because I think particularly of interest to our audience will be, where can an RMIT law degree take you in your career? And you did our Juris Doctor program, which is a graduate entry program rather than an undergraduate degree aimed at mid-career professionals. So tell us how you came to be studying law at RMIT and how you found that.
Thank you, Anthony, and great question. I think I remember doing VCE legal studies, and we had an excursion to the Magistrates Court in Dandenong, where I grew up. And I remember watching one of the advocates there at the court and thinking, I want to know what she is saying. I have no idea what she's saying, but one day I will find out. And fast forward several years later, my sister said, "We give it a shot. Go and apply for to RMIT." So I did, and that was one of the very earlier applications to the Juris Doctor, and I'm so glad that it's the program's going great guns. It's been a really wild ride. So I at the moment I work at the Parliament of the Commonwealth. In fact, Parliament is sitting right now, and this is where I've ended up. But I've also worked in community legal centres. I've worked with state and federal members of Parliament. Right now, I think you mentioned before that I work for a senator. Before this, I was working in the National Aboriginal Legal Services, and I was working on two very, very important campaigns. One of them is to raise the age of legal responsibility. So at the moment in Australia, children as young as 10 can be jailed. And there was a big campaign that I worked on to increase that age to at least 14 in line with the United Nations recommendations. We made a lot of, we advocated directly to the United Nations through a whole lot of processes for that to happen. And I also worked on another campaign to have more action on Aboriginal deaths in custody. This year is the 30th anniversary of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody, and I've had the great privilege, in fact, to advocate on these things directly to the United Nations human rights processes, which I wouldn't have been able to do if it wasn't for the RMIT law degree. In fact, today, just before I jumped on this call, we were helping draft some legislation on some national security things that the senator would like to see enacted into law, and then we have to go in and help her get that legislated, and then also having to have legislation referred to parliamentary committees. Parliamentary committees are how anyone watching can actually have their say on the legislation that the Commonwealth Parliament passes. So it's about effectively engaging the community and informing a whole lot of people as to what's going through on at the Commonwealth level in the Commonwealth Parliament, and trying to get people to engage in it. And it's been a really great ride, and I think none of that would have been possible had it not been for the RMIT law degree.
Yeah, and David, you were a really active member of our student community. You ran the Law Student Society while you were there. You were one of our earliest graduates, and we're very proud of your achievements, and now you actually sit on our advisory board, so there's a continuing connection with RMIT, which we really appreciate and benefit from. I'm now going to ask the panelists about what law firms in particular are looking for in graduates, but I might start with you in relation to this, David. Before I sort of talk to Kim and John about what their respective firms are looking for and what the process is like, but what was your experience as a fairly recent graduate? I mean, you didn't go the sort of law firm route yourself, but I'm sure you had peers that did, and I'm sure you experimented with it and looked into it. How did you find that whole sort of context, and perhaps why did you choose not the law firm route and rather the one that you've taken?
Yeah, I actually did a very, very short stint at Maurice Blackburn. So there's 3 Maury B's alumni here, or 2 alumni, I should say. I think for me, the reason why I wanted to study law originally was to, I suppose, in effect, make the justice system live up to its name. Obviously, I don't think it's any news to anyone that the legal system that we have now can have some really bad consequences, particularly for First Nations people, refugees, people who are seeking asylum. And that was my main motivation. I came to Australia as a refugee, and that's always sort of driven me, you know, this sort of idea of wanting to get involved in social change, which is why I worked at Maurice Blackburn for a very short stint. And I think for me, the experience was really great, particularly at Maurice Blackburn. And my sense of it was that ultimately they wanted someone who knew what the law was and had really good academic credentials, but ultimately was going to be a really good person and was really driven and motivated by the values of the firm. That was my experience at Maurice Blackburn. I know that a lot of my other sort of fellow RMIT law students went to all different firms, and the experience was a good one. I mean, obviously it is competitive, but it's not impossible. And if you know what you're doing, you know your stuff, you studied, you've done the work, then there is absolutely a job out there for you. But for me, I think that it was more about, well, I always thought that I think it's the system that needs to change, and I set out to try and do that, and I'm very lucky now that I get to work at the Parliament to hopefully try to achieve some change that way. Yeah,
I think it's pretty clear that you're already making a great contribution there, David, and I'm sure there are even bigger and better things to come for you. So Kim, what can you tell us briefly about what Maurice Blackburn is looking for in a graduate?
Well, so the key thing, I think, and David just touched on this, that that graduates who apply to work at our firm have some understanding of our firm's history and an appreciation of our values. We're a very values-driven organisation. I must confess to you all, I have been at this firm for more than 30 years, so it's been my life professional career, and that has been really the main reason that I have stayed is because of this values piece, which has been very important, and it often motivates a lot of the people that come to our firm. But we do want to see that people have a genuine interest in plaintiff law, that you would have some insights into the types of practice areas that we have that I mentioned earlier. Obviously, some good academic achievements in law. Strong relationship building skills is really important, particularly in a firm like ours, and being able to communicate really well with individuals at all different levels and from all diverse backgrounds. I've acted for many thousands of people in my years at the firm, and from lots and lots of different communities and backgrounds and so forth. So it's really being able to show that you've got some insights and abilities in that regard, and the ability to empathise with people. So even if you come from a different background, it's being able to walk in their shoes, as it were, and obviously a passion for diversity and social justice, and those sorts of attributes are really good. And the other thing that we do tend to look at when we see people's resumes is we're interested in what you've done throughout the time of your study. Have you supported yourselves? Have you worked in other places? Lots of students, of course, need to support themselves and work in hospitality, for example. COVID, obviously, and lockdowns accepted, and that demonstrates to us that you've got some experience in being in a workplace and what it's like to be in a workplace, and it demonstrates the kind of tenacity that you've needed to get through your law degree. Often people will really race to try and build up volunteer work on their resume. From our point of view, obviously it's a privileged position to be able to spend that time on volunteer work and focus on study. So if you can do that, that's really fantastic. But obviously, if you have to support yourself financially, then that's we're interested in that too. So, and then just very as a last thing, we have started to really address, you know, the types of skill sets, and John touched on this earlier, actually, around many of you will be very familiar and able and competent at using technology and digitised services and what have you. But I would say that we are starting to look for skill sets, not that you'd have to obviously come out of your degree being able to write code, but just having an understanding of what technology and what digitisation can do, as far as not only the processes that you go through in delivering legal services, but the way that those legal services are offered. So having some insight into that, I think that they will be skills that we'll start to look for as we recruit into the future. And there's opportunities obviously to do that at this wonderful university, and I'm sure David will be able to touch on that more deeply than me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, look, your staying power is impressive, Kim. I think I've had about 10 jobs in the 30 years that you've been at Maurice Blackburn, but I know your commitment to that work, and that's why you stayed there, and it's really impressive. John, what would you say in terms of what you're looking for, more from a commercial law firm perspective?
Our focus is very much on your legal capability. We do look to how you've gone in your degree, and we do focus on that. And to get an understanding of, you know, how comfortable you are with the various legal challenges that various disciplines within the law present. So we do look carefully to see how you've gone, whether it be in property or contract or crime or business and human rights, the whole lot. Just, you know, how have you coped with the various challenges that a law degree presents? So that is a big focus for us. Because we're a commercial firm, we look to people who have an interest in working in that environment and can articulate why. You know, they have a level of curiosity about the types of work that we do. And commercial firms, in some ways, they have great breadth to the types of work we do, but there's a whole bunch of things that we don't do. And clearly, there's a lot of work that, for example, Kim does that we don't do. So we're quite different firms. Both, you know, big firms that do really important work, and occasionally we're on the other side of things together. But there is a difference in the commercial firm. You know, we do look for people who have a genuine interest in working in that sort of environment and doing the kinds of issues that and the clients for whom we work.
Yeah, I think it's, having worked in your firm, I can attest to the sort of emphasis placed on legal excellence, and but also the broader person and the ability to relate to clients, I know, are really important attributes that you look for as well. So we're sort of heading towards wrapping up this part of the session. So I might just ask each of the speakers, before I say a few things about the Bachelor of Laws program, and then we have a bit of time for questions, what would be your 1-minute advice to anyone considering studying a career in law? I might start with you, David.
Thank you. I think absolutely get involved and do what I did, even if you're remotely interested. Go visit the courts. There, you can go and visit and sit in the public gallery and watch how they work. Go and watch Parliament. Go see where laws are made and how. It might be a little bit dispiriting, but persevere. And if you're like me, you're one of the first people to go to university or definitely go to law school. Join LinkedIn and see and talk to people who are either doing what you want to do or would like to do, or have done it before. And finally, I think also joined the Law Institute of Victoria as a student member. It's free to join as a student member. You can get involved in all the activities that they run for students, for law students. In fact, networking at one of those is how I got the job at Maurice Blackburn. So get involved. And if you're interested, get involved and get at it.
I think you did all of that really well, David, and you're still doing it. How about you, Kim? What would be your 1 minute advice?
So I reflected on this in the context of having a law student son myself, who's in 4th year. So my advice to him and my advice to all of you is to make sure that you focus on the things that you really enjoy during your degree. As David's just touched on, if you can pursue some of these networks and just take the opportunities that might present themselves to meet somebody in a practicing law firm. People like me love to talk to people like you and to talk to you about our experiences, and it's great. I find it very energizing to do that. So use those opportunities. But when you make your subjects, I know that you have to do a certain number of the Priestley 11 subjects, but when you're choosing your electives, do things that you enjoy and keep an eye on the trends in the law. Come along to talks like this, and that will give you lots of good ideas about where you can go. But you've heard from David, who speaks about it with really great passion, and I hope you feel inspired by him, because he's somebody who's come through it far more recently than either John or I.
Fantastic, Kim. And you, John?
Anthony, the thing about the law degree, it is a very broad degree. It is not it's not narrow. So there's opportunities for you to explore things that you may not understand or be aware of when you start. So try to be curious and put aside what you think that the degree is going to be, and leave yourself open to new learning, because you don't necessarily know where a law degree will take you. There are lawyers all over the place doing all sorts of different things, and if you bring an open mind and a level of curiosity and effort, if you're interested in the law, there are an incredible number of pathways available to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes just mentioning some key points about the Bachelor of Laws degree. If we could go to slide 3, please. So the Bachelor of Laws at RMIT is relatively new. It started this year. We've been running the Juris Doctor, which, as I mentioned before, is the graduate entry mid-career. People typically take that mid-career, but we also get some students coming straight from their undergraduate to the Juris Doctor. That's been running for about 12 years. The Bachelor of Laws is for school leavers or for people wanting to transfer from other RMIT undergraduate programs. So there are a few different pathways into the Bachelor of Laws. It's a 3-year degree, and the important thing to note, and I think this might answer one of the questions in the chat, is that after the 3 years, or after doing any undergraduate law degree, if it was at one of the other Victorian law schools, you then need to do either a 6-month practical legal training course or 1 year of supervised workplace training with a law firm, which is usually obtained through a graduate position. And the firms vary in terms of the numbers of graduates that they take. The bigger firms take larger numbers each year. But you need to do either of those things in order to become eligible to practice law and get admitted as a practitioner. The practical legal training is not something that we offer. It's something you would do, and I think David might be able to say in a minute where he did his, but at somewhere like Leo Custon Centre for Law or College of Law, or there are a number of different interstate providers. Where did you do yours, David?
I did mine at the Australian National University.
Yeah, that's another one. So you would have done that online?
Yeah, I did it online. In fact, I technically did it here in Melbourne, but it was through the ANU.
Yeah, that's right. So if we can go to the next slide. So just looking at some of the career outcomes, and there's our poster person, David, again. But really, and this answers another question in the chat, which I think was about, apart from David's experience, where have some of our other graduates gone? I think the point John made about a law degree being a great qualification for a whole range of different things. So there's obviously the law firm path, and within that there are different types of firms, different sizes, firms that you might call plaintiff law firms like Kim's, that are acting generally for individuals in the different legal issues that they confront in our economy and society. You have commercial firms like John's. There's the whole government legal sector, where quite a lot of our JD graduates have ended up, and also legal aid. There's non-government organisations, there's legal and non-legal roles that are available within those. You can go on to be a lawyer in-house within a company, or as I did for a few years, within a trade union. And then there's also broader options like media and politics. David's obviously evidence of the usefulness of a law degree in the political sphere. There's academia, which is obviously where I've ended up, and generally that would require undertaking a PhD after doing either a Bachelor of Laws or the JD. And then there's the commercial legal sector that we've talked quite a bit about. If we could go to the next slide. So this is just in relation to our entry requirements. The LLB at RMIT, as I mentioned, is a new program. So this was the first year it was offered. We have an intake this year of around 90 students, and the ATAR was around 85, and we would expect it to be around that level or perhaps a little higher in 2022. And then if we can go to the next slide, which is just a bit of an indication of the course structure. There are certain courses that you have to do. We call them the Priestley 11 required areas of legal knowledge that you'll find in any law degree in Australia. They include things like contract and criminal law and torts and property. But within our program, we've tried to add to that in some of our core courses and some of our electives, a real emphasis throughout the program on law and technology, on preparing you for legal practice in a globalised world through things like international business law, and one of the core first year courses devoted to that topic as well. And another big theme is law, business and human rights. We have a Centre for Business and Human Rights in the law school at RMIT, and that's, I think both Kim and John would agree, become an increasingly important area of legal practice in a whole range of ways, including things like global supply chains and the accountability of corporations, modern slavery legislation. So there's a real emphasis on those cutting edge areas of legal developments that are really built into our program. And I think the next slide is the final one. That just gives you a bit of brief information, but if you want to find out more about the law programs, you can go to the website on the slide. And I'll say a bit more at the end about what's coming up with our online open days. We're quite disappointed that Open Day this year, which was meant to be coming up very soon in person, is now obviously going to have to be an online event given the continuation of the Melbourne lockdowns. So in the time we have left, I'm just going to have a quick scroll through the messages we have in the chat, and I'm just going to throw these over to different members of our panel. And I might start with you, Kim. There's a question here about how many graduates does Maurice Blackburn take on each year?
So the short answer is around 5 or 6, Anthony, each year. So, and indeed, at the moment, because of COVID, we weren't sure what the impact on our business was going to be of COVID. We have slightly changed our recruitment just for this year into our grad program. So we have a lot of students, law students and graduates that work in our firm, and so those people will be applying for our grad program. So it'll be a very internally focused one for this year.
Yeah, I might as well ask you the same, John. What's your graduate intake now?
Well, we did it yesterday, Anthony, for next year, and I think we've got 25.
Okay. Yep. So still, that's around pre-pandemic levels.
It's higher actually.
Yeah.
And that's for Melbourne. So across Australia, we're up around 70. So
yep,
it's a lot. But it's a lot. But there's a lot of people who like the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. It's competitive. Now I'm not sure about exactly what this question means, but I'll see what either you or Kim make of it, John. What are some of the main tech platforms being used by law firms now?
Well, I'm happy to look. We obviously communicate a lot by email, and that's becomes the natural way in which we operate, and all businesses do. And that's got good and bad things about it in terms of just how accessible we are, but it does create lots of conversations with our clients through email and so there's a more collaborative feel. There are systems that we use to manage documents. There are automated systems for generating documents. We've got a platform called Cause Edge, which is for the startup community, which they can go in and create documents themselves online. So there's also various apps being used for holding court documents. There's apps for responding to safety incidents and environmental incidents. So that kind of is the kind of world we look at. And of course, we don't have law libraries anymore. All our knowledge centres are online. So that will be familiar to everyone. But that's the sort of environment we operate in.
Yep. Okay, this one's for David. Would you recommend a career in law as a good stepping stone into politics? I'm interested in running for don't know what the first thing is. Might be mayor. Yes, it's got a spelling mistake, but it's mayor or the Senate or Prime Minister. So we've got a very ambitious prospective law student online here.
I love that. I really do. Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing with the law degree is that it teaches you how to think through problems and come up with solutions and be creative about it. So, yeah, a law degree will prepare you for that and for many, many, many other things. Absolutely.
I think this one has been answered by both Kim and John, but I might just see if you have anything to add. The question is, does GPA matter for hiring, or is it more soft skills now? Did you want to add anything, Kim?
Well, probably I would say in the last several years, soft skills, stumbling over my words, Anthony, soft skills have come more to the fore than perhaps earlier on in my career. So, and that particularly because, as I was touching on earlier, we're dealing with individuals, with people who come from a huge broad range of different backgrounds and different communities. So so that's important. And also, and John, I'm sure would relate to this too, but as you progress through a law firm, you need to develop good skills at managing people. You'll very likely end up with some form of a leadership role. As you progress, it might start with just working with an assistant or a team that is providing support to the bigger team that you're in, but that's a really key area around being able to have a good set of soft skills, as they're called, as well. So there's lots of different things that when you're at law school, certainly these things are not taught so much in law degrees, but they are really important things to be reasonably good at. Did
you want to add anything, John?
Just to reiterate that point, Kim's point is an excellent one, and that's, a lot of law firms are team environments, so your ability to be able to contribute positively to a team is really, really important. It's something that we pay significant amount of attention to.
Yep. And this one I think is for you, David. Can you talk a little bit about the Juris Doctor course? How intense is it, and would I be able to work full time while studying?
It's not a lie that law degrees are tough. They're not impossible. I think but it was hard. I did mine working full-time and studying full-time. It was because my life allowed it at the time. I also had very, very understanding partner and family. As to whether that's sort of suitable for each person, I think it's a very individual choice, but you won't have a lot of free time, that's for sure. So, the JD is hard, and so is, having to work. I did that too. It is manageable, but just you also need to be really mindful of looking after yourself, because there is an opportunity for burnout if you don't manage yourself and manage your time really, really well. I approached it as a project. It's got a bit of a project management view to it. And I also sort of buffered in some time to look after myself and go outside and spend time with family. It's not impossible, but it does require a fair bit of managing and preparation.
Yeah, I think that's right. And our typical JD student would be someone working full-time and studying part-time, probably doing 2 units a semester, which means it takes quite a while to get through it. We have a smaller number who are studying full-time and working casual or part-time jobs. It's not that often people do what David did, which is full-time both. I think that's a really tough proposition, but obviously, as David shows, it can be done. And the other thing I would say is that with the Bachelor of Laws, the benefit this new group of younger students has, and it's already being seen with our first year group, is that we have the JD students around. So we've built mentoring and buddy relationships between the JD students and the LLB students. So I think through the Law Student Society and through the other things that we're doing as a school, there are really good support mechanisms in place for anyone listening who's considering doing our undergraduate law degree. Look, I think that's all the questions, and I think they've all been answered really well by our 3 panelists. I really want to thank John and Kim and David for joining us, giving us time from your busy schedules to talk about the opportunities for lawyers, and in particular studying law at RMIT. And I should also mention that John and Kim are also, like David, members of our advisory board. So there's an ongoing relationship of you all acting as a sounding board and providing a lot of input into our programs and support for our students, both in terms of what they're studying while they're studying it. We have a lot of you in the classroom talking to our students regularly, but then also in building these career options and keeping students aware of the opportunities that are available. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you for that. And I thank the audience for joining us. If you have further questions, you can visit the Study at RMIT page, which is rmit.edu.au/contact, or speak to us during the main open day event via the live chat function, which is on the 29th of August, that you should register for programs that you're interested in on open day. And also on the same day at 11 AM and 1 PM, we'll have focused information sessions on the Bachelor of Laws. So if you want even more information, you can attend those. So thanks everyone, and I wish you all a good evening.